Bingo Blitz rules.
If your bingo has ads in it,
That's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini games, and the most breathtaking design,
Nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing...
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Discover a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
Hi, this is Rob Benedict.
And I am Richard Spate. We were both on a little show you might know called Supernatural.
It had a pretty good run, 15 seasons, 327 episodes.
And though we have seen, of course, every episode many times, we figured, hey, now that we're wrapped, let's watch it all again.
And we can't do that alone, so we're inviting the cast and crew that made the show along for the ride. We've got writers, producers, composers, directors, and we'll of course have some actors on as well, including some certain guys that played some certain pretty iconic brothers.
It was kind of a little bit of a left field choice in the best way possible.
The note from Kripke was, he's great, we love him, but we're looking for like a really intelligent Duchovny type.
With 15 seasons to explore, it's going to be the road trip of several lifetimes. So please join us and subscribe to Supernatural Then and Now.
Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of But Am I Wrong?
Yeah.
Starring...
Two people who have never been wrong.
Just know, though, that in tomorrow's episode where we read the results of last week's, something happens while we're recording. That is me being right.
But if...
And Melissa being
wrong.
The
thing is if you take it percentage-wise of how many times I was right versus how many times you're wrong, it's probably versus how many times you were right, you're probably right about 0.09%.
But in that moment, I was right 200%.
Whatever.
It's a numbers game, everybody. Welcome to another episode where we are two people who have never once been wrong in our lives, and we are going to tell you when you are wrong. We're also going to tell each other in our lives, hey, are we wrong about the situation? We never are. You can watch on Patreon to see Melissa do a little shaky shake. It happens to both of us. It happens all the fucking time.
Yep.
The latest episode of Love Island, maybe it wasn't did it make your nipples hard?
It made my nips real hard.
If you want to watch this, head on over to Patreon so you can see us in all of our glory.
We look cute today.
We do. I'm blue, abba-dee-abba-da. We have 3 segments of the show. We will get into each of them as they occur. But one of our favorite parts is you all get to vote on who you think is wrong in each of our segments by going to our Instagram. These episodes come out on Thursday. We usually post the votes on Friday. And by we, I mean me. And if I haven't posted them and it's Friday, feel free to send me a DM and be like, hey, girl, unless I'm traveling, just give me a little friendly reminder. Then we read the results on our Friday episode, which is called Fisting Friday, because we're making sexual jokes out of absolutely everything we do. Okay. I hate that. It's I'm fine with the over-exaggerate, but when you make it
real?
No, I hate, I don't like that. I really don't like that.
Some people do. It's for them.
It's not for me, and I'm the only person here. We're talking to an audience that is not in the room with us.
Are they?
Is the audience in the room with us right now? So, yeah, it's a great time. We also post the votes straight to the highlights as soon as they're up. So if you're missing one when you're looking at the stories, do that. They're only there for 24 hours, though. And then if you vote with the unpopular opinion, or maybe it was the one that you wrote in about, or even if it's a popular opinion, if you have thoughts, feelings, send us a message so we can read it out loud and start a dialogue, a conversation on the Fisting Friday episode. Because you need while you're fisting? More talking.
Mm-hmm. You have to talk your way through it.
That sounds so procedural, medical.
It kind of is.
I mean, depending on your context.
Well, I know a doctor that is his job, is to fix prolapsed buttholes. And he's known as the fisting doctor that you go to in Florida. He's a good looking man.
Yeah.
Has nice looking hands. Well manicured.
You'd have to. If that's your whole job is even subconsciously, I would be like, let me look at your hands. I know you're not fisting me as the operation, but I would like to know what's going into my body.
Yeah.
Anyways, without further ado, shall we hop in to our first segment, which is But Am I Wrong? Where we tell each other things that are happening in our lives currently, a situation, and we ask the other, am I wrong? Or we present a hot take with the class.
Or rants. We decided on that last week.
Too. Mm-hmm. So mine is a combination of a hot take and a rant. And I say specifically like kind of a rant because I've touched on a subset of this before. But I think, don't come for me, that BridalTok might be one of like the absolute worst sides and like pockets of influencing.
I've never been on it, so enlighten
Melisa,
me.
It's like my fucking phone knows that I'm engaged and they're like, so we must be serving you like bride content. And some of the stuff that I see is totally fine. Like there are like, I think wedding planners who do videos talking about like cost breakdowns or like how they do these things, like helpful, great, informational, wonderful. People trying on dresses. I'm like, oh, cute, like fun, great, whatever. But there are people who like you'll see in their bio that's like 2023 bride or something. Like it becomes a part of their identity. And then their entire TikTok account is about wedding planning. And there's someone who I follow who reviews like Vogue weddings and like not in a like bitchy way or not even in like a cunty way. Like in just like, oh, and I loved this and this was so pretty. And they'll talk about the details. And then they also review like people will send in their own weddings and like she'll do like the photo stuff. But then she also like talks about fashion. She talks about like how to source different items. And it's not about really her wedding planning process. So I just want to say there's a very stark difference to me between making your wedding your social media brand that you're not a professional in the space. You're not getting paid for. You're making this time in your life like your entire social media identity versus, you know, being fascinated and interested in weddings and talking about them in like forever in your content. So I think this is where the really hot take and maybe conspiracy theory comes in. I think that there's an intentional pipeline from bridal TikTok and being a bridal influencer to the traditional housewife gender roles. And then I think there's an unintentional brand identity of becoming like my entire identity is in being a bride. And I think because we see all these people, not you, me, I see all of these things, that it kind of gets conflated that people are like, oh, I'm going to start making bridal TikTok videos and become one of those TikTok brides without realizing that half of the people that they're watching have then suddenly turned into like day in my life as like as my first day as a wife. And my day in the life is like as a wife. And like, you know, like someone asked like why we didn't live together before we got married. And that's because, you know, a man has no incentive to marry you if you're just a girlfriend who's already cooking for him and cleaning for him. Like, why would he spend the money on a ring when he's getting it all for free? And I'm like, I'm not shocked at all that you are saying this. That's to me the intentional pipeline to that. And at most, it like usually promotes like useless consumerism. And like there's this bubble because the wedding trend cycle is so fast. It's, I think, honestly, probably faster than even fashion and like anything else. Like people are like, oh, this wedding is so 2022. Like this wedding is like so dated. Like you can't do this anymore. Like this is so gross. This is so like 2014 Pinterest, blah, blah, blah. There's like an increased pressure to spend money on a singular day. So your audience is also like fleeting. And this is from the sides of like, not just like regular people just sharing their wedding. It's people who like try to make that their, I don't know. It kind of feels like the MLM influencer version of like a get rich quick thing. Like, oh, if I throw on these hashtags here, like this video is going to blow up and like this is going to be what blows me up. But weddings are just very much keeping up with the Joneses. And I can't imagine this helps with like the lack of identity and no longer feeling special like after the wedding ends. And I think sometimes it feels like people seek out these echo chambers to justify what they're doing. And it's like a really expensive bubble. And then when you're watching these things and you're already spending, let's say $15,000 on something and someone's like, oh, and you can upgrade, and I'm upgrading this to this and this and this. And I think that's like a lot of the time people will talk about how planning a wedding can be really isolating. And it's because no one can really relate to you deciding between to spend $10,000 on white chairs or $20,000 on acrylic chairs. It's not like or an eggshell or a cream. Like, it's not the plight that everybody else has. I also wonder, what if the marriage fails? Which,
then it becomes a divorce account.
Honestly, I'm telling you right now, I would love that more. I think like doing that so much more. But also, it feels like it's another way to make like the wedding process and season of your life not really about the couple or the marriage, but just about appearances of it. And I saw someone who's like going through, and like, granted, they were donating like all of their, like, oh, I'm donating all of my bridal clothes. But then someone's like, oh my God, I need bridal clothes. And it's like, oh, well, for the engagement shout, like all of these different events. It's like, oh, I haven't had those. And it's like, oh, well, you should ask if someone's going to plan those for you. And it's just like, holy fucking shit. Like, it's already such a huge, expensive fucking industry. And then, I don't know, people who aren't getting caught up with influencer trends or spending a lot of money and being influenced by what people say. In a wedding, you're already spending so much fucking money. So people just end up spending more and more and more monies. And I think all of this boils down to that, like, planning a wedding and becoming a bride is one of the few times when I think we like celebrate women and femininity in our society. And it's not only allowed, but encouraged by everybody. And I can imagine that that's intoxicating. And that's like, I think probably how we get to that bridezilla trope, that it's like, we're telling women that this is the most important part of your lives. You've officially been picked. Like, now you have a wedding dress. This is all about you. This is you. Like, you don't have to sacrifice anything you want, which women are never fucking told, like, at all. It's always like, you're too high maintenance. Like, you're doing this. Like, you need to be more chill. But then we put like this threshold cap on it. And if you go past it, you're a bridezilla. But it's like, but you created the monster. You started the monster. Like, you made women feel worthless and like shit until they get married. And then when they're engaged, you tell them that like they've accomplished everything. They're doing everything right. This is amazing and perfect. And you finally give the praise. And then you feed the monster, and then you tell them they've become a monster. Well, all the while just swiping their credit cards over and over and over again. And I think there's a big difference between going on YouTube to like watch someone do like a DIY for their wedding, or a creator like filming something that was like successful, or their experience of the aftermath, or even like a daily vlog of it. But they're watching it back, they're editing it, and it's all in the span of at least days, if not like weeks, over a time period of all of this. Versus, you know, TikTok, you pick up your phone and you record a smash or pass on 2023 wedding trends, and it blows, you add the hashtags knowing that it's going to blow up and like go viral like really, really, really fucking quickly. And it's going to go straight to the audience of brides who are like doom scrolling to see if their own wedding passes the test. And on short form platforms like TikTok, negative things with the algorithm do better. And so like it just can feed into like the absolute toxicity of it. And all of this spans because, I mean, all this started from two different videos, but one was because a girl made a video stitching someone else's wedding video, accusing them of copying her wedding.
Who cares?
Melissa, you could open Pinterest and it's the same wedding, but it's like, holy fucking shit, you place all this importance. That's what I mean. I'm like, you get in this echo chamber and you place all of this importance on it, that all of these decisions that you're making that are really fucking expensive, you have to feel so secure in them and like so special and so unique that like nobody has ever done it before, but everybody's done it fucking before. But the idea that nobody has done it before, and that's what everyone is striving for with the wedding, is literally an impossible goal. That's just the only people who are entertaining that, like all of your vendors and shit, they're just doing that to get more money out of you. And then you're going to accuse this couple of copying your wedding that was like so perfect and like so special and all of that. Like literally, even if they did, who gave a fuck? And also,
it's not about the show that you're putting on. It's about you making a commitment to your partner.
But if you're going to be a bridal influencer, people will be influenced.
That's true too.
Like, what the fuck? And like, to me, I'm like, I really hope that video, it blew up. I'm like, I hope it's a wake up call for people that it's like, some things are not supposed to be monetized. And something that is like, whether you deem marriage like sacred or a wedding or whatever, but like if you have an individuality complex, hi, me, hello, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss your fucking wedding.
People always ask me where my stuff is from, and I'm like,
I'm an Aquarius. Why the fuck would I tell you? No, it's just like,
if you don't want people to copy you, don't be an influencer.
Yeah, and the whole thing I just feel like is so toxic because there's not really anything good that comes out of it. You become a successful BridalTok influencer. People only want to see brides who are actively planning their wedding. Your wedding's done. What the fuck is your content? Like it has not been about you. And then you've made your entire identity an event, like a day, like, and then not even like your marriage or your wedding. And I can also assume that weighs kind of heavy on your partner, especially because the wedding planning stuff is not easy. And like there's stuff that's hard or stressful. But when you are making that content, then if you only make the content of the hard stuff that's going on, then all you're doing is complaining and getting in an echo chamber of other people complaining, or you're not talking about the things that are hard. But then a lot of people won't even talk about their own weddings. So like, you know, talk about it in like things that are kind of like obscure or whatever. And it just feels like it's like a get famous quick, but then you fall just as quickly and hope your social media and your influence doesn't fail along with like your marriage and your relationship and your sense of identity. Like it just, it feels so specifically targeted at brides and that there's no way to succeed. You only fail. Like you're either I'm not like other girls or you're a bridezilla. Like it's just, and it's like a gazillion dollar industry, which we talked about in like a while ago about the wedding industrial complex. But it's just, you don't have to participate in it, and you can share your wedding, you can share all of that stuff without fitting into this like niche on TikTok that like I think most people would look back on in a while and be like, wow, I don't like this.
Yeah.
So I'm like watching all this shit and I'm like, oh my God, what if you statistically, it's highly likely that you will get divorced.
So have fun.
At least share that with us.
I'm going to be an influencer soon.
What are you going to influence?
My it'll be a tight niche, but I can't say it.
Oh, okay. Because she's an Aquarius.
The product I have, I'm getting it for my birthday, but there's also a wait list for it. So I probably won't have it till March. So
I just want everyone to know that like, there's no way for me to even fucking guess what she's talking about.
I've told you about it before. I told you I wanted this thing.
Oh my God, Melissa, you want like a fucking like zero gravity amniotic fluid chamber. Like, I don't know what the fuck. There's so many things it fucking could be.
Anyway, here's mine. It is a rant. It's serious. So
are you implying that my bridal TikTok rant was not serious?
I'm implying that mine is very serious. So
we've got both in this episode then.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right. So mine is gun violence needs to end, and it starts with the manufacturers. It's not a hot take.
It's dare I say a frozen take.
Right. So today is January 25th. Shootings that made the headlines in the last 4 days. We've got the Monterey Park, California shooting where 11 are dead, 9 wounded at a Lunar New Year celebration. Then in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, there was 12 wounded at a nightclub. In Des Moines, Iowa, 2 students are dead and 1 teacher was wounded at a youth outreach center. Half Moon Bay, California, 7 dead, 1 wounded at 2 separate plant nurseries. And then Oakland, California, 1 dead, 7 wounded at a gas station. I actually wrote this yesterday, and I saw this morning there was another shooting that was like a headline where a lot of people injured at another nightclub. But according to Everytown, which is a movement of parents, students, survivors that help with gun education, every day there are more than 110 people shot and killed, and more than 200 are shot and wounded. That's every single day. Mm-hmm. And so every year, the gun industry rakes in approximately $9 billion while we pay with our lives. So gun violence kills more than 40,000 people and wounds twice as many each year. Some of the top manufacturers of guns are Glock, Smith & Wesson, Taurus, and Ruger. And Students Demand Action shared that there are 17 demands for gun industry to take a step up. And I'm not going to say all of them, but here are a few, and they seem pretty reasonable. Stop making AR-15s and other assault weapons that use high-capacity magazines. Stop marketing to kids and teens. Stop using fear-based ads to sell guns. Stop marketing weapons of war to civilians and using military imagery to sell guns. And stop working. They literally work with TV shows and movies to get their gun and video games to get their guns as product placement, which sounds outrageous.
No, like, until you said this, I thought a Glock was a kind of gun, not a brand. And I'm like, oh, but it's name dropped for a fee the same way that like Pepsi is.
Yes. And so the Gifford Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, if you don't know who the Giffords are, just take a second to look it up. They have an article about the gun industry immunity, which states that with every other industry in the United States, civil liability can be used as an important check or irresponsible and harmful industry behaviors. But the profit-seeking gun industry has enjoyed enormous exemptions from liability and accountability in court since President Bush signed the Federal Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act in law in 2005. Many states have also enacted similar laws that shield firearm and ammunition manufacturer dealers and other industry members from any kind of like civil suits that they can receive. And so there's no civil liability for anything that happens with gun violence, which is not the same thing. Like if I sit on this couch and it like the leg falls off, then I could sue the company, even if I was the one that screwed the legs on.
Yeah, even like with cars.
Yeah.
Like the guns misfire, guns have like, there's room for error in manufacturer error as well as user error, which there's liability in cars for both of those things.
And Everytown says that firearms are not regulated like other consumer products. The laws regulating how many guns may be sold are outdated, and members of the gun industry that skirt the law enjoy special legal protection. Guns are not required to have safety features that are...
As a podcast network, our first priority has always been audio and the stories we're able to share with you. But at Realm, we also sell some pretty cool merch, and organizing that was made both possible and easy with Shopify. When you think about successful businesses like Aloe or Allbirds or Skims, an often overlooked secret is the business behind the business that makes selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. That's because nobody does selling better than Shopify. It's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret that's definitely worth talking about is that Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. That's more happy customers and way more sales going. If you're hoping to grow your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
Shown to reduce unintentional shootings and theft. Information is hidden from the public on which gun dealers supply firearms recovered in crime. Gun dealers are rarely inspected or held accountable, even though violations are common. Gun manufacturers and sellers that skirt the law have a unique, broad immunity from legal accountability. So, it's past time for this to be regulated in the United States, and I'm just sick of every day waking up to something of somebody getting injured or shot from a gun, or somebody just going on angry retaliations against people, or people just shooting for quote unquote fun and hurting themselves too.
Yeah, I think that like similarly to how on the packs of cigarettes it has to say like this has led to cancer or whatever, like I think it should say like this is how many people have died by gun violence, but also specifically I think it should have the statistic where having a gun in your home is more likely to be used against you. And I think it's like whatever the actual percentage and numbers of it, but it is far less likely that you will use your gun in self-defense at your home. It is more likely that your partner or someone else will use it against you, resulting in death of you or a loved one.
Right.
And that one, because again, the self-defense definition, like you're saying, like it's, or the justification of it, and like it's all like military and like, like patriotism, like protect your family and all of that kind of shit. And that's a lie. Like that's not true. And that's like statistically not what's happening. And so you should have to disclose that to people who, when you're telling them they're buying it for their own safety, you should let them know, like, we told you that like this will help you stay safe, but you should know statistically, this is actually having this in your home puts you at risk way more.
Right. In the same way that we have to take a test to drive a car, to have a waiting period before we can operate it by ourselves, like that should be a whole thing. And the gun manufacturers should be like, that should be something that they should be for, because that also it should protect them, but it doesn't.
Yeah. And like across our country, we need the same gun laws in every fucking state. But again, it needs to be accountability, and like that's how you have regulations there. Like that's why companies have HR to protect themselves. But when there's no consequence, then there's no reason for them to have any regulations there.
Because once again, capitalism, $9 billion they make a year.
Yeah. And everyone should also check up on who in your area, local politicians as well, who has received money from the NRA. And you'll notice.
And the gun manufacturers themselves too.
There's a huge political reason. And the reason is not that they believe that guns are right and that they're for our safety. It's because they're being paid off, which should also be illegal.
Yep.
You shouldn't be able to take.
But they're the ones that get lost.
I know. That's what I mean. Like it's a cycle.
A cycle of incompetence, capitalism, and greed.
And corruption. So you're obviously not wrong because it's a rant and it's all factually correct. Okay.
All right. Let's take a break.
Are back from our break, and we're going to hop into our next segment, which is But Are You Wrong? Where you write into our email address, butamiwrongpod@gmail.com, and you let us know a situation in your life where you want our insight, us to hit with the bedazzled gavel. If you are in the right or wrong, if you're the hero or villain in your situation, we do require that you keep it under 300 words, and it's all anonymous, so give fake names if you want to include names. If you would like to include pronouns of you and other people who are involved, please do so. And make sure you let us know your ages so we can get like a nice well-rounded sense before we go into our jury deliberation of 2.
You're up.
Okay. Hi, Eminem. I, female 18, I'm in a very different point in my life compared to my friends. I didn't get into my uni of choice, so I've taken a gap year instead in my country of birth and have been cut off financially by my parents. For context, I grew up internationally as a child of diplomats. That sounds like a Mary-Kate and Ashley movie. And attended many international expensive private schools, which most classmates came from extremely rich backgrounds. Annual tuition was close to a U.S. college tuition, making many of my friends very privileged and wealthy people that have now gotten into their dream universities abroad and are being completely financially supported by their parents. For example, my ex-boyfriend's parents are paying double the cost of his dorm room so he doesn't have to share. Meanwhile, I'm living alone, employed as a kindergarten assistant teacher, which honestly forced me to be mature. I found interacting with many of my friends to be almost unbearable at times, in part of my own jealousy. I wish I was in their positions right now, focusing on midterms or frat parties, instead of worrying about trying to cover my healthcare. I am frustrated and exhausted by every interaction with acquaintances asking me about my life stage and feeling like I owe them an explanation. I feel guilty for judging them and being annoyed at them when they aren't deliberately trying to hurt my feelings with their occasional ignorance. However, the clear divide in economic position and, to a degree, privilege is not something I know how to grapple with. So my question is, am I wrong to gradually distance myself from these friends? Or should I be reflecting internally on why I am jealous and uncomfortable? Thanks, and love all the podcasts. I don't think that you're wrong at all for wanting to distance yourselves. I think the way I would go about it and the way that I wish I had done was that, like, I wish that I had intentionally sought out friends and people who came from similar backgrounds as me, because people can be like amazingly great. And like you said, like unintentional ignorance or like not recognizing their own privilege or whatever. Like I have a much higher threshold for that when that's not the only fucking thing I'm surrounded by. And I think that you getting fed up with them, I'm sure like there's probably situations where like there might be some specific people who you're like, no, you're just, we're growing apart and like you're just an ignorant ass and I don't want to be friends with you anymore. But there might also be some people who you'll have more patience for them and being able to like answer a question if you feel comfortable and then have them learn from that and then not ask that again, or to like be educated on that and like take the initiative when that's not who you're spending all of your time with, because like that does feel really othering. So I would like seek out, I know you're not asking for advice, but like I think that having a natural distance grow is great, but I think you're in a really isolating part of your life right now. And so I don't think the solution is to isolate yourself from everybody. I think it's like take some distance from the people who are like making you feel shitty about your situation, even if it's unintentionally, and then seek out people who you feel like you can really relate to. I had a core group of friends growing up that didn't grow up in Marin we all didn't grow up with as much money. They all had more money than we did. And I had a couple of friends who had less money than I grew up with. And like, I don't know what I would have done without that. And I wish that I had that. I wish I'd fostered those relationships more. And I wished, like, even as an adult, like that I had more, friends that had similar, like even like becoming like working on like sets and stuff, making friends with people who also didn't come from like incredibly privileged, or not even privileged, because like I grew up privileged and so did they, but like incredibly like wealthy backgrounds with a huge safety net. And that's also financial, but then also just like family support. It was nice. And it was like, oh, there are some conversations I can only really have with you. And then I can have them with my other friends, but I'm able to have someone I can relate to. So then when I talk to my other friends about it, I'm not trying to get something out of them that they can't give me,
Yeah. And the thing is, 18 is such a transitional point in your life anyway. Some of these people you probably wouldn't have remained, even if you weren't cut off from your parents, you probably wouldn't have remained friends with them. But I do think like a lot of your friendship, your core friendship, when you're just friends with somebody, it's because you have certain things in common. And you're not going to be friends with somebody that you have absolutely nothing in common with, because that's not a friendship thing. It's like you wouldn't cultivate a friendship with them. But when you do have a friendship, it's usually based on at least one thing that you have in common. So if there's some of your friends that you still have some things in common with that, are able to check their privilege, then remain friends with them. But I don't think you're wrong from distancing yourself from people that you no longer have a common bond with, or you might not have even had a common bond. It was just that you were in the situation you were in, you're kind of forced to be with those people anyway. And then when you get older, you're not necessarily.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, a founder of the Go Kid Go network. At Go Kid Go, putting kids first is at the heart of every show that we produce. That's why we're so excited to introduce a brand new show to our network called The Search for the Silver Lining, a fantasy adventure series about a spirited young girl named Isla who time travels to the mythical land of Camelot. Look for The Search for the Silver Lining on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Necessarily forced to be with certain people. So then your friendship group diversifies.
Yeah.
Because I have friends that have so much more money than I do. And some of the things they talk about, and I'm just like, not relatable. But like some of their struggles, I'm just like, not relatable at all. But like we have a lot of other things in common. So
yeah. And if that's the only thing they can talk about, then I'm like, okay, we're just really different people now. Like if I can talk about your money and like your struggles, I don't like say like it sounds cunty, but like behind your back. But I'm like, if you come to me and you're like, oh my God, like our $15 million penthouse is drafty. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. But if that's all you want to talk about, like the worst things that have happened in your life are the worst things that have ever happened in your life. Like you can't have that barometer and threshold. But like, if that's the only thing that we talk about, then there's not, like you said, there's not much left to the friendship.
There's no friendship. There is no friendship.
So I don't think you're wrong. But I also think like reflecting internally on why you're jealous and uncomfortable, I don't want to say it's not that complicated, but like, I think like jealousy is I think it's an intense emotion, but I wouldn't say it's the most complex. And I don't think we need to like whittle it down to exactly what it is, because it's recognizing envy and jealousy and all of that. Like it doesn't have to mean more than that. That's what it is. Yeah. And then you can process it as opposed to trying to like explain it away. It doesn't make you a bad person. So owning that and being like, okay. this is taking over my life, so I need to supplement this.
Yeah. All right. My turn. Hi, Eminem. I, 28 female, she, her, and Rachel. You knew what you were doing when you used that name. 28 female, she, her, were best friends for over 10 years and had always said we would be in each other's weddings. 3 years ago, I got into my first relationship and she was already a year into her relationship. My boyfriend and I have minor disagreements. Rachel proceeded to tell me every time we had a disagreement that I should break up with him and that I couldn't trust him. There were never any cheating arguments. I told her that I trusted him and we have a very healthy, open line of communication. I've been in therapy and I can communicate. She couldn't understand this, which led me telling her I needed some space from her and her negativity. This space lasted 8 months, and I had begun healing after going through a rough mental health patch after moving to a new town. She reached out to me, and rather than asking how I had been, she immediately dismissed my feelings and made the whole thing about her and how the friendship was one-sided, and she had always put the effort in. She hadn't. She ditched me every time she got into a relationship and missed my birthdays because she was too hungover. I tried to explain why her comments had been hurtful, to which she said, "It wasn't hurtful. You just can't accept that someone might not always have your best interests at heart." What a fucking cunt. After that, we cut ties and have blocked each other on everything. Recently, another friend told me that Rachel had gotten engaged and split from her fiance during the 8 months we hadn't been talking. Am I wrong for not giving a shit about her, or should I reach back out? Absolutely not. You're not wrong. This person seems awful. They also seem like they were projecting their feelings about their own relationship onto you. And it didn't work out, so it's not like they were meant to be with that person anyway. She's also rude. Like, this is... First, she complained about everything in your relationship when it was just small things. Nobody's going to have a perfect relationship, and even small things just still it's nothing. And then her reaching out and saying that it wasn't hurtful. You can't just accept that someone might not always have your best interests at heart.
Like, is she talking about, like, she thinks that her boyfriend doesn't have her best interest at heart? Or is she saying that, like, I don't have your best interest?
That she's saying I don't. I think that's what she's saying. It's like, you can't fault me because I don't always have your best interest at heart because I'm narcissist and only care about myself.
Yeah,
I would not want to be friends. I would not want to be friends with this person.
No.
Like, she scares me.
No, this is like big losery,
creepy type of person.
Yeah, I feel like she's got that like glimmer in her eyes.
Yes.
And you go, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Even when she smiles, it's like, I can't trust that bitch.
The smiles don't reach the fucking corners of the eye. I bet if you look at some fucking pictures of her, she might not even appear in the photographs. It's like a vampire in the flash. She's like, where is she?
Don't reach out to her. Don't ever talk to this girl again.
Yeah, I just don't know that you even were best friends with this. I will say some unsolicited advice to like pretty much everyone. Complaining about your partner that's like a long-term or whatever, when it's about a general thing where it's like we're talking about, you know, if it's in cis heterosexual relationships when like women are talking about like weaponized incompetence with like men and whatever, I think that is great. But like when your friends, your family, anyone, when you like vent about your relationship, like the shitty things to a friend every time they kind of happen, it's pretty natural that some people just aren't going to forget it. Like, and some people are just going to like, because they're not there for the they're not there for the making up for it. So like people kind of like log it in the back of their head. And a lot of the times that prevents people from like going to therapy when they should go to therapy, or also talking things through like with their partner. And so I think that being intentional about who you share what with, when it's like people that you know are mature adults who understand relationships, who can like know that there's an ebb and flow, and also like really like your partner and like they're not rooting for them to fail, and or a friend who's in a very similar position to you, and you both go into those conversations knowing that you relate to the other person and there's no bad feelings there, like in the long run. But I would say that like I think she's a bad friend, but I think even good friends can be bad friends in these situations. But I think she's a bad friend in all situations.
I literally cannot just like look you in the eyes and just tell you that I never have your best intentions.
This is giving me like that's a flashback and then something else happens. Like, what? A part of me really wants to believe she meant that she thinks her boyfriend doesn't have her best interest at heart, but like, how does that even relate?
It doesn't.
That's so creepy. Does she know where you live? I'm afraid.
Okay, your turn.
Okay. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for about a month, and he would always bring his dog over when he'd come to my place because he didn't like to leave her alone. I got a foster kitten that weighed 1/2 pound and was in rough shape because she had puncture wounds. My boyfriend wanted to come over and meet her, and I told him he couldn't bring the dog because I didn't want the dog around the kitten while she was still so little and vulnerable. My boyfriend got upset and offended and kept saying his dog wouldn't hurt the kitten and things like that. And then he ended up not coming over. Am I wrong for that? No. What? I'm just like, I'm curious how old he is, which is why we ask for like, do people include ages and stuff? Because even if it's like a dog, like regardless, or like a new dog, it could even be new to you, but it's like an adult dog. Like, does he not understand like the introduction of pets? Like you have to, go through all of that shit. Like, and that's with a adult, a healthy, non-traumatized, like you have a tiny 1/2 pound kitten and he's going to what? Does he think this is going to be like an animated movie?
Right.
And he's going to facilitate the meet. If he wants to meet
a dog can just like, they think that they're being gentle because how animals play. And, they kind of toss each other around. So like, no, you can't predict how the dog is going to react. You can't predict how the dog's going to react around you. Yeah.
That's not quality time you're spending with your girlfriend. Like if you want to have like a 20-minute, like, let's like, I'll bring the dog, like the dog will be in the car. We'll like bring the scent of the dog around. Like we'll slowly, gradually increase all of this, but he's not even doing that.
And you've only been dating a month.
I'm sorry. If I was dating on a month and they brought their dog over unless I fucking loved the dog and I like had but like the level of like, you have to make sure you have nothing that the dog can like get into that could then hurt themselves or poison themselves like within that level. Like you have to like baby proof a home that's like your place for their pet.
Yeah.
Like that to me is just, I don't find that like endearing, and like I do love dogs, but that's not, I don't think that bodes well 1 month in.
No.
For that, unless you're asking like, oh, bring the dog.
Yeah. I want an update.
I know, me too.
Are y'all still dating? This is just not the move for me.
This is not the vibe.
No.
I would be shocked if you're still dating.
Anyway, is your boyfriend at home all day? Because otherwise, which some people are home all day.
Yeah.
Us included. But your boyfriend just never leaves his dog alone.
Then have someone come to your place then. Yeah. And like if the dog, because like I just can't imagine that that's also like in the best interest and the most fun for the dog either.
Anyway, no, you're not wrong.
No, not at all.
Next up for me. Hey, Meghan and Melissa, I, she, they need to know if I'm wrong for wanting more support from my partner, he, him, 30, while sick.
The writer's 28. You skipped that part, but just FYI to people.
Great.
You're welcome.
We've been together 5.5 years, and household responsibilities have always been a sore spot in our relationship. He's not the type of person who feels overwhelmed with clutter. I am, however. I shut down easily because of childhood neglect and still learning how to ask for help. I've listened to his feedback and agree that when at my limit, I can come across aggressive. So I've changed the way I ask to help. I ask for help to be a we instead of a you. I've gotten better at approaching housework as a team and communicating the why behind something that's important to me. We have an accountability calendar, so we both know what the other's personal goals are and can check in if support is needed. That being said, I awoke from my Rona coma after...
I've never heard that term.
Neither have I. And the way you wrote it looks like it's a...
Like a Baja Blast.
Like I'd see a TM after it.
No, that's what I mean. It looks like a frozen beverage at a fast food chain.
Only to see boxes everywhere. No dent made in the yard work, dishes undone, countertop sticky, etc. While stressful, I never communicated that I liked him to help, and I don't expect him to without asking. I approached the conversation this morning with, in the future, I think it could really help for us to take things off the person's plate when they're sick. He became defensive and looked at me as though I was asking for a kidney. I should mention he had a 3-day weekend, and even though I was asleep in my own room all day for 5 days straight, he left his room only when absolutely necessary. While I respect that he was afraid of getting sick himself, am I wrong for asking for more support when something as contagious as COVID is involved? Well, for me, as someone who is very afraid of COVID.
What?
And
we're very lax here.
And I also have a compromised immune system. I would be in my room as much as possible and I wouldn't be doing any other work. If it was his dishes that were left dirty, yes, he should be cleaning it. But if it was your dishes, I wouldn't want to touch them. And I know, there are safety precautions you can take, but I'm a little too, I'm not going to touch it until a few days have passed and the virus has died off of those utensils. And so even if he had a 4-day weekend, it wasn't like he was on vacation. He was
in his own personal hell.
Room, staying away from the germs. So sorry, but I'm on his side for this one.
Me too. I think if he was hanging out in the common space and was in and out of the house,
going out with friends,
in and out, all of that kind of thing. If it was clear that it was just he viewed your sick time as an off time, an off time for him, versus you're sick, we're locking down.
Yeah.
And this is also affecting me, then that's where I think the difference in it is. I do think that I'm glad you mentioned that household responsibilities have always been a sore spot, because I think that's what's coming from this. But again, I'm also curious, you said you didn't leave your room for 5 days. So did he make you food and then leave it by the door? Or did you text him and be I'm going into the kitchen to grab this, and this, and then you escaped as quickly as possible? Because I think both of those, I can still see if he's the only time he's spending in common space is to cook his own food and cook you food or grab you takeout or whatever that. He's doing stuff for you, and he's not getting ahead of tasks. And he might be nervous that he was going to get sick, and that he was nervous about that, and knowing that the period in which he could have gotten sick. So then if you didn't want to do a lot of yard work or things to kind of get a head start on some things, or things that have been backlogged, that he was okay, well, there's a chance I'm going to get sick, and I don't want to exert energy on the chance that I might be sick, but I'm not testing positive yet, because that's also everyone says now with long COVID, it's lay in a room with the fucking lights off. Don't even think, don't even read, just sleep as much as possible, and don't use a lot of energy. So I think that, in general, communicating, if you're out of town or something and you're going to do for a weekend, and you would if they can get your partner can get some stuff done similar to the way that he could say that to you, that's something that needs to be communicated before, because people can't meet your expectations. But I think in this instance, I think even if you communicate it before, I think it would be perfectly reasonable for him to be I'm not comfortable with that. But I think this is weighing on you because it's been a sore spot. So, but I think in this instance, I think it's very justified.
Yeah. If he looked at you you asked for a kidney, then I'm guessing he feels the same way.
That's the part that I'm just that to me is you're trying to not get sick. And not getting COVID is a way higher priority than a sticky counter.
Right.
But again, I think in a different instance where there's not an incredibly contagious illness involved, I think that you would be totally justified in wanting, even if you were just working late, it's we should always pick up in a shared household, picking up the slack for meeting people where they are. It's never going to be 50-50, but I just don't think these are the circumstances.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
You're wrong.
You're wrong.
All right, we're going to take another break.
Woo! We're back with our final segment. Should I tell them what it is, or would you like to tell them?
You can tell them since you're first up.
I am first up. Our first segment is...
Our third segment is...
My goodness. Our third segment is, but are they wrong? Where we nominate someone in the news, pop culture, someone that, you know, we think deserves to be voted and crowned wrong of the week. Someone who's doing the most in not a positive way. And it can range from anything to news, politics, very serious, not serious, the ongoing saga of Scamtos, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would like to nominate Madison Russo. This is so specific. And I saw this first on someone's TikTok, and I want to give them a shout out because they're doing some great work. And their TikTok is Scrub Hacks. Madison Russo is a 19-year-old woman, which you know it's got to be bad if I'm coming for a 19-year-old, who has been accused of stealing more than $37,000 from people who have been trying to help her for her cancer treatment that she does not have. So she started a GoFundMe, and she is currently facing a count of theft, according to the Eldridge Police Department. And she received about $37,300 from 439 donors, claiming that she had leukemia, pancreatic cancer, and a football-sized tumor around her spine. She shared that she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer on her GoFundMe page on March 9th, 2022. And the GoFundMe says that she, as a St. Rose Ambrose University student, she was diagnosed with cancer on February 10th, 2022, and started a vigorous chemotherapy and radiation treatment to battle the disease. As one can imagine, this diagnosis has been very hard on Maddie's family. Just like with any cancer diagnosis, the cost of medical bills, gas, meals, and expense can be a burden, and that's something this family should not have to worry about. So let's just talk about unpacking her social media. So she has kind of become a cancer influencer in the sharing of things. And when someone brought up how she had been going through this rigorous chemotherapy and she hadn't lost her hair, which, you know, not
With something like 5 million podcasts, finding a really good one can take a ton of time. So let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and in each episode, we discuss topics that can be really helpful, like how to read people better, the psychology of crowds, or fun things like the story of Legos, or why you probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for horses. Something You Should Know is the name of it, wherever you get your podcasts.
Everyone loses their hair. She then posted a picture of hair in her sink. She said, like, oh, my hair is like falling out in clumps, and the hair's cut. Like, it's straight cut, and it's, I'm going to say it looks not like real hair, but it might be her real hair that she cut from the back where you can't see any of it, but it's clearly snipped ends of hair. And when asked how she was doing this, it was because she said that she had oral chemo, and her specific brand of chemo doesn't cause hair loss, just thinning, which is not a thing. And again, thinning is coming from the root.
Right, I was going to say thinning is still hair loss.
It's not a 3-inch haircut that you do in your sink. And then she goes on to say that she just takes biotin. And she holds up the hers package, shows like another one that her mom got her. And, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a link tree in her bio where you could get her biotin that she's saying has helped her with this. So also on her social media, she is posting photos of like blood transfusions, like chemotherapy, all of this. And if you do a reverse image Google search, not her images. Sometimes there are also other people on Instagram who do have cancer, who she's not just stealing like a stock image photo or something from a fucking hospital website. No. It's from like legitimate cancer patients who are documenting their own journeys. She talked about how she, you know, shows her port, which is looking pretty messy, not really how it should be. And then when zoomed in, this creator who is making this TikTok sees that it's a nurse who's doing this TikTok, that the port is a GI tube, and she put the part that goes into the port in her nose. So even if it was a GI, like a functioning GI tube, it's the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so clear that it's not real. And the Eldridge Police Department was made aware of Russo on January 11, 2023. That's almost a year after the GoFundMe was launched. And they subpoenaed Russo's medical records, showed that she's never been diagnosed with any type of cancer or tumor from any medical facility within the Quad Cities or surrounding area. She alleged that she had had her pancreatic cancer was stage 2, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and the tumor again on her spine. So last July, she also appeared on a Facebook page for the National Pancreas Foundation speaking about her story.
Oh my fucking
Melissa,
gosh.
It's wild. And it's a 5-minute video, has also now since been deleted. And it was also highlighted in the North Scott Press newspaper where she talked about her journey with cancer. She made all of these claims very openly, also including to multiple media outlets, podcasts, and social media. And she spoke at her St. Ambrose University again, also as well as the Chicago-based National Pancreatic Foundation. So people on social media thought it was sus, and specifically cancer patients and people who have cared for people with cancer have noticed discrepancies in her story. She also posted all of these links and things on LinkedIn. So people are trying to figure out if her parents had any idea and had participated in this. She also had posted another creator and someone who is known within the cancer community had passed. And when they passed, Maddie made a post about it and talked about how, really made it about herself and about how this journey is so scary. And she's spent so many countless nights on the phone with her and how this girl helped talk her through her cancer. So when in this other girl's last year of life, spent time on the phone consoling someone who is faking having cancer. And she also picks and chooses at these public events she goes to wearing wigs, and not well done wigs, poorly done, very obvious wigs to imply that she has lost her hair, which she hasn't. And she's showing them there. She also has pictures of her spine that she has done with it looks like a crooked Band-Aid on it. Also the specific GI tube can be bought on Amazon. It's just so fucking much.
Yeah, I'm looking at her mugshot right now, and
she's
hair
also
is so thick.
I know. She's well, I've been blessed with really thick hair, so I'm not really losing much. And also, she is so fucking tan. She's so fucking tan the whole time. She's not looking sallow. She's not having any of this. She was posting things about going on runs and doing all of it.
It's she wanted to get caught.
That's the part that people are everyone thinks that there has to have been an adult in her life that enabled this, because there's no way that her family and you have to have someone corroborating the story.
Right. And no one ever asked hey, let me go to chemo with you? Because you can't just drive away from chemo.
That's what I mean. I'm so your parents or
Somebody
someone has to
know.
be in on it. So then they're continuing this. And so she was arrested this past week, and she was booked into Scott County Jail. And she yesterday, and the day we're recording this is Wednesday, January 25th. And I think it was yesterday, Tuesday, she posted bond, which was $10,000. So she's out on bond. And it's I would recommend looking at the other woman's TikTok where she's going through all of this shit. But
what's her name?
Scrub Hacks. She's kind of unpacking all of that stuff. And she even has people who have sent screenshots of messages that they're dealing with cancer. And Maddie reached out to them and was let's talk. I'm so sorry. Let's I'm here for you, blah, blah, blah. And she documented all of this, and it was so easily not real. And I don't want to divert blame from her, because you make the conscious choice. But again, there has to be something else. There has to be another person involved in this. So that's what everybody's trying to waiting. And I think even in the last TikTok that Scrub Hacks said something along the lines of I've had some people who've let me know that there was somebody else involved in this, but until it's reported or I have confirmation, I'm not going to be sharing that information. So people are wondering if it's, I think the girl has a boyfriend or a partner, or parent or someone who also willingly participated in all of this. And
they will get arrested too.
Yeah. And it's like individuals, nonprofits, and businesses all donated all of this money.
I saw that GoFundMe is refunding everyone their money.
Yeah.
But there's other things that she's gotten.
I was gonna say there's someone in my life who had cancer and like
paid.
That's and I was like
food,
people dropping off meals, like offsetting a lot of like your responsibilities, and even just like being really overly kind to you and like buying you a Starbucks, like just anything like big or small. Like anyone who has dealt with a health thing or you've been with people who've dealt with health things, like people treat you differently. Like it's not just kindness, it's with tasks and like, oh, I'm running to Target. Can I get you any? Like people aren't going to get their time back, nor their like mental energy that they've spent worrying about you.
They may not trust other people.
Yeah. I fucking can't stand that. Like Instagram, I mean, that the Reddit subreddit of like people like illness fakers and like people claiming that like all these people like fake illnesses and shit. And there are some people who do, but then they bring up the questioning for everyone to do that. And like, to be frank, when people are faking illnesses, they fake things like cancer. Like they fake things that are pretty easily disprovable. Like they're pretty easy to prove that they don't have because they're seeking attention. And attention, you need to create doubt, so that creates more attention there.
Right.
But it's fucking wild. And then just documenting it. Anyways.
All right. Well, rightfully said. This week, mine is Pat Grassley, who is a senator and, according to him, farmer from Iowa. He wants to end the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program in Iowa, also known as SNAP or food stamps. To him, he says, this is a quote, everyone wants to make this new education savings account program look like the true threat to public education. If you look at the cost, if you want to look at the true budget impact on what things really are challenging in the budget for public education or private education, whatever it be, it's these entitlement programs. They're the ones that are growing within the budget and are putting pressure on us being able to fund our priorities. So the proposal would make Iowa one of the first states in the nation to offer universal education savings account that could be spent on private school tuition.
I just have to say, government, your state doesn't pay for private schools.
The voucher-style scholarships would be worth $7,598 per student in the first year, instead of, giving monies to the public schools. You're just giving people vouchers to go to private schools.
And how much are the private schools paying you?
Right. I just want to highlight what he said. If these entitlement programs, they're the ones that are growing within the budget. But, speaking of people being entitled, he's the grandson of U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley, who is 89 years old. And in 2022, he was elected to his 8th term in the Senate. And then back to what I was saying, Iowa has a $1.8 billion budget surplus. He's seeking to limit food stamp recipients to essentially being WIC recipients, which would only be the new assistant program. And WIC is designed for expecting mothers. So getting rid of SNAP would cut meat, poultry, fish, canned fruits, and vegetables, and items commonly used for food preparation like butter, flour, spices, and seasonings, etc. And with WIC, you can only get milk, juice, cereal, bread, rice, pasta, fresh fruit, vegetables, eggs, and yogurt. And so no meat.
And brands too, specific.
Yeah, there's
so then with the
brands.
shortages, there's a lot of like expecting mothers who couldn't get the formula that was covered by WIC. And so then you can use like EBT, like food stamps to cover other, it gives you more options.
Right. But also the thing is, SNAP is a federally funded program, not a state funded program. And the state only pays half of the administrative costs, which for Iowa constituted only $27.84 per case per month in 2020, less than the cost per case in 18 other states. Cutting this would save the state pretty much nothing, or actually they would end up paying federal costs more because, according to Luke Elzinga, the chair of the Iowa Hungry Coalition, the administrative cost to try to kick people off the program would only increase the cost to the state. Iowa would have to run a complete asset check on every application to ensure that they do not exceed the cutoff of $2,750 per household, $4,250 if somebody is disabled or over 60. And so even if somebody loses their job, they don't automatically get approved for WIC. For SNAP, you have to go through all your savings and then have no money to even be approved for this. So it's not like it's even cost effective to do this.
Like for a family of 8, it's showing that the max gross monthly income is less than $5,000 for a family of 8.
Yeah. And so I also want to point out that the Grassley family farm has received over $1.75 million in federal subsidies over the past 2 decades, and more than $1 million of it was classified as a commodities subsidy, something the government pays farmers to make up the difference when the free market crop prices fell to reach the effective reference point. So they're not even making enough crops to really, they're making enough to be considered a farm, but not enough to make money. So the Grassleys grow on their 750 acres in Butler County. So again, he's taking money from the government. Who really is the entitled one here? Again, be careful who you elect to local government. Really look at the people that are being elected, because they're not that smart. They don't know what they're doing. So if you ever, looking at recent people that have won offices, including the last president, if you feel so inclined to run for office, even if you don't feel like you're educated enough, you are.
That was really my takeaway. When Trump got elected, I was like, wow, I am erratic and smart enough to be president. To use the Reddit term, a lot of politicians rage bait. And so they create faux crises to get people to vote for them.
Right.
And then when their constituents are like, okay, let's do that. They're like, okay, yeah, we're going for all of this. They're banking on you not Googling because you didn't Google during the election to find out that that's not a real thing. And they're banking on you not Googling now to know that this is not.
Right. There's a lot of companies that are also strictly against this bill because they're it doesn't make sense, but including Tyson Chicken, which has 2 plants and making more money than his family farm is. So,
well, a lot of companies benefit from participating in these programs because it can be a tax break for them. So let's just talk about capitalism in regards to food stamps. That keeps capitalism running. And also the states that have the most people on food stamps are also red states. Right. And these are the people who voted for you.
You're going to take, because if it's not enough supplies that are going out for the people in your state, then they're going to take that plan away too. So you're going to take jobs away from your state.
Pretty anti-capitalist of you.
Yeah. So again, if you feel so inclined and you're I don't know where to start, go to emergeamerica.org and they'll help you. They will give you a mentor to help you run for office.
Yeah. Regardless of where you are in your state and your circumstance, if you're finding yourself stretched thin financially, look into assistant programs in your state, because where I grew up, we weren't on assistance by any means, but what was considered low income where I lived would not be considered low income in other places. So don't think of it like a universal number. If you're in a high cost of living area and you might be eligible for assistance, and even if you are not eligible for federal or state assistance, you can also look into organizations who will kind of bridge that gap, because they know that a lot of places are only going to be helping people who are actively in poverty, maintaining their level of impoverishment. Not worse, but it's not getting anyone out of poverty.
Right.
So there are organizations who kind of bridge that middle ground and help out in that way.
Yeah, because even I believe for SNAP in Iowa, if you have 2 cars, you don't qualify.
Yeah, there are a lot of like loopholes, so they don't have to cover for as much, but there's a lot of grassroots organizations
that will actually. Yeah.
That's like the one thing that capitalism didn't account for is everyone who's been fucked over by it banding together and working together for that.
Yep. So, okay. Well, that's it.
Megan, you can't make thinly veiled threats on this pod. I know. Okay. Yes, that is it.
That's it.
The end. We hope you all enjoyed this podcast. If you want to vote, you should tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, message me. But head on over to our Instagram and vote who you thought was wrong in every situation. If you have things you want us to talk about next week, either your own hot takes, rants, things you want to hear us deep dive on, or you want to nominate a Rachel of the Week, you can tag us on Instagram, send it to our DMs, tag us on TikTok, our individual ones or our joint one. Probably make sure you add our individuals because I don't check our joint one as much.
I couldn't tell you the last time I logged into our joint
either.
one.
So tag our personal ones. And go comment on our Instagram who your personal Rachel of the Week is.
Yes, please.
And you should all know what Melissa recently told me. Meghan Markle's first name
is Rachel.
And that bitch, she's the original. Who knew? Who was like, I'm out. I'm going by Meghan. Meghan with an H. We're swapping that middle name first. Iconic. Okay, then goodbye.
We'll circle back.
Oh yeah, that is how we end this one. But Am I Wrong is a production by me, Megan Rinks.
And me, Melissa DeMonts, plus Diamond Imprint Productions.
Post-production by Coco Lorenz.
And production assistance by Melanie D. Watson.
What's up, everyone? It's Noah Daniels.
Hey, y'all. I'm JJ.
Hey, guys. It's Kat.
And we're your hosts of the Real Hauntings podcast, where we bring on guests to share their first-hand encounter ghost stories and supernatural experiences. Now on to the trailer.
I've been warned to not tell this story, but I think because of the way it ends, it's okay to tell this story, because some people say that with certain entities, to like speak of them or talk about them or in any way like portray them as powerful will attract them to other people. The creepiest thing about it to me is a lot of times it would wait for me to notice it. Like it would just lay its arm out like this, and then I'd be like, where is it? Where is it? And then I'd see it, and then it would just slither back.
For more information on the Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories podcast, make sure you check out real.fm to learn more about our podcast and many other amazing podcasts.
Contained herein are the heresies of Radolf Buntwine, erstwhile monk turned traveling medical investigator. Join me as I study the secrets of the divine plagues and uncover the blasphemous truth that ours is not a loving God, and we are not its favored children. The heresies of Radolf Buntwine, wherever podcasts are available.